Hello and welcome to SpyHards podcast, where your hosts go deep undercover into the world of spy movies to decipher which films make the knock list. But remember, this information is strictly for your ears only. I am Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur, and Scott, espresso. No sugar.
See, is that because you're sweet enough, Cam?
That's right. I'm as sweet as Jason Statham.
Very sweet, very sweet. Too sweet, one might say. And speaking of twos, and speaking of sequels, and speaking of returns, we have a very special guest joining us this week for his second time on the show. It is Brendan from the What Were They Thinking podcast. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, and boy, what a twosome of movies I've been on for on this podcast. Didn't think we could follow up the last one, but boy, howdy.
It occurred to me, actually, and this was not planned, but that both times you've been on, you've been tackling Hitman movies and not classic spy movies.
And, I mean, remakes of good ones, right? Like, this is a sequel to a remake of, like, a supposedly better one. So it's kind of a trend as well.
Yeah, is this progress when you're in the sequel to the remake, or should you be on the remake? Like, are you spiraling downwards at this point?
I don't know, but now we got to do, like, what? Wicker Man 3. Does that exist?
Okay. It has to be the straight-to-video sequel, I think, at this point.
And it would have to be a spy thriller.
Surely it's Cats and Dogs 3, isn't it? That's like Cats and Dogs 3, if we're talking like straight to video.
Yeah.
There's a third one?
There is.
Yeah.
Pause Unite.
Oh, wow. Even after Kitty Galore got revenge, there was another movie that needed to be made. I'm impressed.
They had a story to tell.
They did.
Had a story.
I think it's so
many
lame, though. They had Revenge of Kitty Galore, which is like kind of like a spy-ish title. You go, okay, I don't know how the movie is, but kind of a cute title. And then they follow it with Pause Unite. And I'm like, really? That's all you had? No puns? No nothing?
Yeah, there's no like pun there, no, is it? No, that's a shame.
They fired their subtitle guy.
I mean, judging by the budget of the third one, they laid a lot of people off, to be fair.
Why wouldn't you call it like Thunderbark?
Oh, save that for the episode, Cam. That's gold.
I'll have another one for the episode.
Okay. I think before we dive into the film, we kind of set it up already. I mean, Brenda, just from yourself, what's been going on since your last visit? What have you and the podcast been up to?
Same old, watching some terrible, questionable movies. You guys have actually, since I've been on last, you guys were actually made an appearance to talk about, I'm sure, what now is one of your favorite science fiction movies of all time, Replicas, starring Keanu Reeves.
It was actually on TV here the other day, and I was tempted to put it back on.
And then you said, oh, wait, that movie's terrible.
The plot. I remembered the plot, and I thought, no, I better do something else.
Is that one of the most forgotten sci-fi movies of its decade?
I mean, Thomas Middleditch would like to think so.
Wait, he was in that?
That poor guy gets abused. Remember, he's like Keanu's buddy, and he keeps getting like,
right.
You don't mind covering up my family's murders, do you?
That's right. It's all coming back to me. Thanks for that. But, at the time of recording, what have been some of the movies you've tackled lately on the show?
Oh, boy. Well, we just recently talked about Coneheads, the infamous SNL film, although I guess quite a few of them are infamous. But we talked about Mac and Me. Actually, we did a bit of an Alien double feature. I actually surprised it took like 7 years to get to Mac and Me, which you'd think that would be an early one. But
well, it's like Scott and I. There's certain ones like Spy Who Came In From the Cold or Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. You don't want to burn through all the classics right up front. You want to kind of pace them out over the course of your podcast run. And Mac and Me, I mean, you released that as episode 1. Who's coming back?
Right.
Mac and Me is like the shining altar that you need to like push a little further down the road.
And that is why I will say again, we will never, ever, 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 ever cover The Room. It's been said. Everything's been said. It's done.
Would you do like The Disaster Artist as like a meta commentary on the whole thing?
I don't. Well, I kind of like that movie, so I think maybe it might be difficult to get too far into it. But I mean, we also talked about They Live, and I genuinely like that movie. But that's a situation where if you look into what the actual reaction was at the time, not loved by anyone really. So Yeah. So just a lot of we just had our listeners' choice month recently. We unfortunately had to watch Music, Sia's movie.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah. Just it's bad when it's like a bad movie, but it's also like uncomfortable to watch. Like there's just she wasn't the one to make that movie, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, I remember that one was quite notorious. It was like nominated for awards, like the Golden Globes or something, but no one had seen it.
Yeah, it was nominated for like it was nominated for a Golden Globe for like Kate Hudson's performance, and everyone was like, "Are you sure?" Like, not that she's the problem, but really? Like, yeah, it's a good example of casting can sometimes destroy your movie, especially when you're dealing with a certain issue. Maybe don't cast certain people.
well, there's another film recently. I'm losing the name of, and maybe you guys will fill me in. But it was like based on a musical, and they got the guy who played the character in the musical to play it in the film, but he's like 20 years older than he should be.
Evan
Hansen?
Evan Hansen, dear Evan Hansen. Yeah.
Mm.
And isn't it? And like, I haven't seen it. I've actually earmarked it a few times as a possible episode, but doesn't he look like 40
Yes.
too?
Yeah. They've de-aged him, but it still looks bad.
They did. They CGI de-aged him.
Yeah.
Did they?
No.
Or his prosthetics, but they've done a little work on him to make him look younger.
I just kind of assumed they did the like Aaron Paul in Better Call Saul, where it's like clearly like a 40-year-old man playing like a 20-year-old.
You mean the Robert De Niro in the what was that film recently?
Oh, The Irishman? At
The
least
Irishman,
they
yeah.
CG de-aged that though. Like the Evan Hansen,
Mhm.
it didn't look like they put any effort whatsoever. They didn't even try.
The only part, though, of The Irishman, I was impressed with the CGI de-aging. The only part where I was like, okay, it's very noticeable, is when he's like beating down the guy.
Yeah.
And he can barely walk. Same thing with Indiana Jones, the recent Indiana Jones movie.
Yep.
The de-aging is pretty good, except for the part where you hear him talk and you're like, oh, he's a 75-year-old man.
Yeah. I mean, I think the gold standard at this point for de-aging is Sam Jackson in Captain Marvel, where it's like,
Yeah.
you can see some of the seams, but it actually is pretty convincing.
Well, and because they're not de-aging him like dramatically too. Like it's like 20 years or something. Like it's manageable.
Well, speaking of Indiana Jones, they do it in the film where they de-age him like 10 years to like the Crystal Skull kind of time, and it actually looks fine.
Yeah.
There's no real problem there.
No, that did, yeah.
I thought the action scenes where they showed him really young, you could really notice it though. Like when he was moving fast, I was like, oh, it looks really computery. But yeah, I don't know. So we're talking about Dial of Destiny. Here we go.
We're not, but we are talking about things being resurrected, perhaps.
Oh.
So Cam, I'll throw it to you, sir.
Yes, drop the, because we are tackling 2016's Mechanic Resurrection, the sequel to 2011's remake, The Mechanic.
Which gets really confusing if you start saying stuff like that. The sequel to the remake.
It's so confusing because, yes, you have the 1972 film with Charles Bronson. We've done that one on the show. There's the 2011 remake, which we watched as well, with Jason Statham. And then this is the sequel, mostly just in name, to that 2011 film.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that. But for those who haven't seen the film, let's hop in our bulletproof dinghies and talk about this letterbox.com synopsis. Mechanic Resurrection. 4 continents, 3 kills, or the love of his life is dead.
The love of his life.
Yeah.
The love of his life. Okay.
We'll take a... Yeah, there's an asterisk there. We'll add that in anyway.
Sure.
But Arthur Bishop thought he had put his murderous past behind him when his most formidable foe... Is that his most formidable foe?
I mean, compared to Tony Goldwyn in the first one, I guess so, yeah.
I suppose. His most formidable foe kidnaps the love of his life. There it is again. And now he is forced to travel the globe to complete 3 impossible assassinations and do what he does best, make them look like accidents.
Yeah? Okay,
I mean, the true accident was this film, but...
Whoa,
coming out of the
hot.
gate hot, yeah.
Well, I think I needed to be resurrected after watching this twice.
I thought this was going to be showered with accolades right from the get-go, but you have turned this podcast on its head.
I thought this was a knock list slam dunk.
Yeah, I saw that the first one didn't make it, and I was like, but surely second time they nailed this format now.
I thought this movie had resurrected the mechanic's chances of being on the knock list.
Oh,
Well, we'll see about that.
such suspense.
Yeah. You never know what might happen on SpyHards. Hey, there's still 2 votes. I've already given you mine. There you go. There's a spoiler for you.
It's true.
But I never saw this film on release, so I have no connection to it whatsoever. Brendan, had you ever seen anything mechanic? Any of the original, the remake, anything like that?
I didn't even know the Jason Statham movie was a remake, but when I found out it was, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I'd never knew about the original one. I'd heard of the Jason Statham one when it came out because it was in that big group of just like, sure, the mechanic, Crank. I mean, Crank obviously different, but like just the bank job, like all these like Jason Statham movies that came out like so close together, and I was like, I couldn't tell them apart, so much so that I almost missed out on Wrath of Man, but I'm glad I saw it because it's a Guy Ritchie movie and it was kind of stupid, but I kind of loved it anyway. No real connection to this, and then I think I heard about this one coming out and I was like, well, I'm not going to see this because I didn't see the first one and it just looks like a pretty generic action thriller, so yeah, haven't seen any of them except for this one like last night.
Okay, quick side question. Have you ever tackled a Jason Statham movie on your podcast?
Oh. Yes, we did talk about Crank 2 High Voltage, but I mean in the most complimentary way because that movie is hilarious.
Sure, and that's something we talked about when we did the previous mechanic film, is that Statham stars in a lot of trash, but like there are entries kind of sprinkled amidst them that are actually really fun and you should go back to if you're looking for good Jason Statham content.
Yeah, I mean, those movies are like, what if we just did everything? What if we just didn't say no to a single decision? And what if an actor came up to us and said, I'm trying to decide between these 2 choices, and the director said, yes. And I think that's what makes those movies different than like just his usual like, oh, and did he do like the Transporter movies or something too? That's another thing I did never really. I think one was in the background at like like a Christmas at like a family gathering or something, and I think I remember saying, yeah, that's probably where it belongs. That's probably the best way to watch it.
It's the perfect time to watch it. I do want to take umbrage, Cam, with an assertion you made that people would actually seek out additional Jason Statham content.
I would.
I mean, if you're seeking that out, I think you should go and see a doctor.
No way, man. Jason Statham movies can be really fun.
Okay. When that happens, let me know.
Okay. You need to watch them all, clearly. Like, Safe. Pretty good.
Oh, all right.
That's another one I heard of that was a little different from the rest. I'll go back to Wrath of Man. I think that one's actually interesting because it's not. It doesn't feel like a standard. There's enough of a Guy Ritchie vibe in there to make it stand out. And I said off air when he shows up in Spy, terrific.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I have heard that he's good in Spy, and I've also heard that the recent spy film that he did that basically no one saw, Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, was apparently very good. No one's ever seen it, but apparently he's good in it.
Is it the sequel? Isn't there like also just a one that's just called Operation Fortune, or is that the same movie?
No, it was, I think, a titling thing based on Where You Live.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. That's another Guy Ritchie movie too.
Yeah, I think in North America it's just called Operation Fortune.
I think so. I think I've seen it both ways. So I was like, didn't this just come out? Is there already a sequel?
I think it was a case where when they announced it, like I remember reading the initial announcement that the movie would be shooting and that it would be a project, it used the full title. And then when it actually came to, being released in North America and showing up on Amazon and what have you, they cut that bit at the end.
And he wasn't in The Gentleman for some reason. I mean, come on.
I know.
Find him a role in that movie.
No kidding.
Well, what about you, Cam? Any connection to The Resurrection?
Scott, I saw this movie in theaters.
Oh, boy.
So I had a movie theater about a 3-minute walk from my house, maybe less if you walked briskly. And it was kind of a rundown theater by its later days. sometimes it smelled like mildew and they had to leave the doors open to air it out while you were sitting in there. Things like that.
Mm.
And I would go there semi-frequently on cheap Tuesdays and watch movies like Taken 3, Safe. Probably a lot of Statham movies, quite honestly. There was probably a whole string of them that I saw at that theater. I know I saw Killer Elite there as well. And so one night, probably around 10 p.m., I went out and saw Mechanic Resurrection because I had seen the original in theater as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I went alone because that's what you do when you're going to Mechanic Resurrection in theaters. And I think my takeaway was that, like, it was bad, but it was kind of a bad I could get on board with because it was very goofy and over the top. So,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm, like, measuring Jason Statham kind of action trash, I'm way more into the ones that are just completely silly and all over the place than the ones that are trying to be kind of gritty and serious.
I can get behind that for sure. I can imagine it was just you in that theater for Mechanic Resurrection.
Oh, there had to be like maybe 3 people.
There
Probably
was one other guy, and you thought he was sleeping. Turned out he was dead.
Yes,
And it was cheap Tuesday too, you said, right?
it was Cheap Tuesday. Yes.
And people still were not flocking to Mechanic Resurrection.
Well, we'll get to the box office in a moment. But
Oh.
yeah, it was a very sparse crowd. Probably a bunch of guys my age and older coming as singles.
That explains the mildew smell.
It does, yes. And sadly, that theater has since shut down. I really miss it because it was like my go-to place for all these like kind of B movies that I'm not going to go see opening weekend at a nice theater.
Sure. I don't think you need to see Mechanic Resurrection in 4DX.
If I don't get D-Box, I'm not going.
Where's my Dolby?
It's just like spraying salt water in my eyes during the entire fight on the boat. I'm like, stop,
Oh, man.
please.
If I had shark repellent at some point for some reason as well.
We'll come back to that.
Well, see what happened was the guy running it thought they were running the Meg, and he started throwing that out by mistake.
Right. Well, I'm curious then to know, because Mechanic 1 did okay from my memory, but it wasn't like a smash hit that everyone was talking about. It just sort of happened and people were semi-happy with it, which generally these days doesn't lead to a sequel, but hey-ho, we're here. So Cam, how did we get the resurrection of Mechanic?
Yeah, not only did it get a sequel, but like 5 years later. It was not a case of, 2 or 3 years later, here's your Mechanic 2. So what happened was the original Mechanic, and when I say original, I mean the original Statham film, in 2011, made 76.1 worldwide. That's not huge. Like, the movie cost 30 or 40 or something like that. And, once you factor in marketing costs, like, that's not that impressive at all. So it was kind of a surprise that you would get a sequel. And I guess what happened was this movie did quite well at home. They said that it sold 1.5 million units, so Blu-rays, DVDs, what have you, and then was rented over 2.1 million times.
Wow.
Through pay-per-view and services like that. And so Millennium Films, which cranks out Statham movies on the regular, they also make the Expendables movies. And basically, if you see a kind of like B-level action movie in theaters, there's a chance you're going to see a Millennium logo before that movie.
Like the geezer teasers, that sort of stuff. Those sort of things. The Taken-esque films.
They don't do the Takens. That's the Luc Besson Europa Corps.
Right.
But they would oversee things like the Has Fallen franchise.
Oh, okay.
Would they have maybe done The Foreigner with Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan?
It's possible. It's very possible, yeah. So, like, if there is a B-level action movie in theaters that maybe stars some borderline washed-up action stars, then there's a really good chance Millennium is behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess they just decided to pull the trigger. Plus, Jason Statham was coming off of Spy and Furious 7 and was looking to kind of give his fans one of his starring vehicles, kind of these B-level action movies that he typically is pretty popular for. Like, you can kind of scoff at them, but he definitely had built up a fan base through these movies over the years.
The Statham base.
Right.
Zing.
Oh boy. So
okay.
They hired Dennis Gansel to direct this movie. He was a German-born writer-director who started in shorts in the mid-90s, did a TV movie called Das Phantom in 2000, and then did his first motion picture called Girls on Top in 2001, which was like a sex comedy. And he worked entirely in German cinema. This was actually his first like American film, was making The Mechanic Resurrection. I just used the, and I shouldn't have, but I've been doing that almost all week when people ask me what I'm covering on the podcast. And
wait. How many people ask you what we're covering on the podcast?
More than you'd think.
In your daily life. Who's asking?
More than you would think. They're always curious what I'm watching every week.
Wow.
Excuse me, do you know when the next bus comes by? Also, what are you covering this week?
Well, I'm glad you asked, sir. You can get the 210 in about 7 minutes, but...
Yeah. And also, The Mechanic, damn it.
Yeah. And so, Gansel, after this movie, really just went back to German cinema. So this is kind of his one kind of big major studio release. And I went through interviews with this man looking for some sort of content as to like what brought him to the project, what inspired him. And it was a lot of very boring anecdotes about, oh, we shot this action scene on this location and the stuntman had a hard time. That kind of stuff. What I did find, though, was a very brief bit where he said what appealed to him was the idea of doing a quote-unquote dirty James Bond movie. So like an R-rated, gritty, kind of over-the-top James Bond film.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also very drawn in by the emotional love story of the screenplay.
That's the one thing I remember from this movie. I'm assuming we're spending the whole episode talking about that.
Well, I mean, firstly, was he actually Jessica Alba's acting coach for this film? Because in terms of his wooden performance in interviews. But this love story is, quite the question mark, because the synopsis talks all about this massive love story that changes his life. And maybe there's a director's cut of The Resurrection. Maybe that's where the is.
We need to resurrect the director's cut, yeah.
Give Gansel a call.
I also wonder how different... I mean, the screenplay could have been very different at the time when he first signed on, too, right? It could have been way more focused on that. Maybe it was better written before someone came in and did something to it. I don't know. Love story is not something that stands out, though. That's for sure.
Well, I'm glad you bring up the screenplay.
Oh.
Because it comes from a story by Philip Shelby, who worked in German TV. His only other major credit was the 2015 Pierce Brosnan film Survivor, which I have not seen. I think it went straight to streaming.
Oh.
I don't even know if it had a theatrical release. It might have.
Yeah.
But not a big hit, that's for sure. And he rolled right into The Mechanic. And post this movie, the end. There is no further work on the IMDb.
For a film that's talking about resurrections, it's actually killing quite a few careers.
Let me continue. This man was one of the writers.
Oh.
Also, Cam, I think you also meant to say end.
True. I have too many thes in my sentences. So that is just one writer. He's the one who came up with the story and the first draft. And then they brought in Tony Mosher, who started out in the mid-2000s, did an episode of a TV show called Kick Buttowski, Suburban Daredevil, and then worked on this movie.
Does anyone know what that is?
No, I have no idea.
Kit Buttowski?
Yeah, Suburban Daredevil. If one of you wants to Google that, well, I'll complete this man's rich filmography. So then he does Mechanic, and then after Mechanic, he has one other credit, and it's the 2017 straight-to-streaming Antonio Banderas action film Security.
I can tell you that Kick Buttowski Suburban Daredevil is an animated show that was on the Disney television network.
Okay, how many episodes has it run?
It ran, well, because it's an animated show that have a lot of episodes, it ran for 2 seasons, and it has a total of 52 episodes.
Okay, that's respectable. I think he wrote one episode, so...
Oh, okay.
And John DiMaggio, who's done voice work in so many things, appears, I think he's the lead? No, he's Mr. Vickle. He's not, in fact, Kick Buttowski. Never mind.
Yeah. So far, we have a little bit of a streak of screenwriters with not a lot of prior experience and not a lot of experience post-Mechanic Resurrection. But wait, that's just 2 of the writers. They had uncredited rewrites from the writing team Rachel Long and Brian Pittman, who were known for 2 films, 2013's A Haunting at Silver Falls, blank stares all around, and 2014's Dawn Patrol, which I had never heard of, so I looked it up. It is a Scott Eastwood film.
Everyone's favorite Eastwood, yeah.
Yeah.
Charismatic as hell. Everybody always tells me he's their favorite part of the Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah. So,
Isn't he in like 2 of them?
um,
He's in 2 of them.
Yeah. He's in a couple,
Yes.
I'm sure. I'm more of a Dusk Patrol kind of guy.
I'm more of a Paw Patrol kind of guy.
So I think the main takeaway can be that they were not really shooting for pedigree when it came to writers working on Mechanic Resurrection. The one thing I admire is they just kept bringing in more people to write it versus just running off a first draft. So it's like they were kind of invested, but not fully invested.
It sounds like a bit of a conspiracy because people are joining this production and then disappearing, and they're hiring more and more writers. Were there like some mysterious tragic accidents on the set or something that all these writers just disappearing because it didn't work afterwards? This is maybe we're uncovering a true crime podcast episode here. This is what this is turning into.
Or it's just like you're going to see some of these names pop up in the future of direct-to-streaming action movies. Could be a bit of that.
Are you suggesting that the Upside Down exists on the set of Mechanic Resurrection, and that's where all these writers are?
It's one of the portals.
Yeah.
You can get to the Upside Down through the mechanic. Mechanic Resurrection.
Yeah.
In the Upside Down, it's called the Mechanic Resurrection.
And that's why it's never been in the news, because there were no set visits to Mechanic Resurrection.
Oh, there were visits, but you just never got to see it.
Right. They had it covered in one of those like cheap curtains you get at a dollar store or something.
Right.
That sounds right. Mm-hmm.
In my efforts to find research on the making of this movie, there's just not a lot of production detail in terms of this movie available online. So I was going through like interviews, and like some of the interviews they had with the actors, there was one with Jason Statham, I believe it's on Screen Rant, where it literally sounds like the preamble of what you would talk to an actor about before you start the interview. It's like asking questions like, so it's a nice day, huh? Things like that. It's crazy.
At least he didn't ask the interviewer if they were in Beautiful World, like one of his co-stars.
What was that anecdote?
That's a Vin Diesel interview, a very uncomfortable Vin Diesel interview where he's interviewed by this beautiful woman, and the whole time he's like, "Man, you are so beautiful. When do we get to Beautiful World? I can't concentrate. I gotta look at your beauty." And I'm like, dude, calm down. And she's visibly uncomfortable, and he just continues and continues. It's bad.
Yeah, these Statham ones don't have the creep factor, that's for sure. They just sound entirely like flippant and like, let's talk about anything other than the movie, that sort of stuff. And I did find an amazing quote from Jason Statham during this press tour. He said, "We try to give the fans what they want. Let's make a movie, have some fun doing it, visit some nice countries, and give people 90 minutes of entertainment."
I actually can't fault that for a second.
No, That's very honest.
That is what I want.
Yeah, it sounds like he knows exactly what kind of movie he's making and what the expectations should be.
Mm-hmm. And if I can put a grown man's face onto a griddle for a few seconds and see the scorch marks whilst I'm doing it, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
it's all good.
I think Statham knows exactly what his audience wants and what movies he has to deliver to kind of entertain them.
Okay.
So, as I said, the original Mechanic made $76.1 worldwide. Keep that in mind. This movie had a budget of $40 million. Domestically, it did 21.2. International, 104.5. For a worldwide total of $125.7 million. So this movie made almost $50 million more than, actually over $50 million more than the first Mechanic.
What?
How much of that was from China?
I would say quite a lot. Quite a lot.
Okay. Because that was another thing with the Meg too. I think the Meg made like most of its money in China, and that's why it took place in China. I always thought that was a weird detail. I was like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, and there's like all the like kind of built-in advertising for Chinese products in the Meg as well.
Yes, and they cast I think like one of China's like top actors, like most popular actors in the movie too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
And she's not back for the Meg 2, I noticed.
Oh no!
I know, right?
I never saw the first one, but did Rainn Wilson survive the first one?
I don't want to break your heart, Scott, but
okay.
When it rains, it pours.
Oh no! Oh no!
His character doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I don't want to shift to the Meg, but I'm just saying his character is confounding in that movie.
Wait! The Mechanic?
Oh,
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that
Okay.
can be part 3 of this franchise.
oh Jesus.
So this movie landed at number 66 for the year, between one spot below Skip Trace, which was the, I think, Jackie Chan, Johnny Knoxville action movie.
Yep.
I've never seen it. It was,
Nope.
I think it was very popular internationally, but got next to no release in North America.
Yeah, no one here saw it.
It was one spot above Peter Berg's Deepwater Horizon with Mark Wahlberg, which was a actually quite good movie.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I'm surprised it's below that. I guess if it's 66, it's probably not that much less, but
And the top 3 for the year, number 1 was Captain America Civil War, number 2 was Rogue One, number 3 was Finding Dory.
all 3 very similar films.
And just as a footnote, we're going to talk about Jessica Alba's performance in this movie, and, it is what it is. But I would like to note that Jessica Alba, around this point in time, was, and to this day, is the, CCO of Honest Corporation, which launched in the early 2010s. By 2014, it was worth $1 billion. And so she's doing just fine. This was a vacation for her, and her, company, Honest Corporation, which puts out basically childcare and baby products, kept her very happy and busy and fulfilled, when she's doing the Mechanic Resurrection.
Is she still working nowadays?
In film, occasionally, but not a lot.
I think the last thing I would have, well, no, because this came out after Machete, right? That's the last thing before. That's the most recent thing that I remember besides this, obviously. But I don't think she's done anything in the last 10 years or so. And if she has, it's very sporadic. Was she in a Sin City sequel?
I was gonna say, yeah,
Yeah.
she was in Sin City 2, but I don't know if that was before or after this movie. I just can't remember.
She's in a movie that came out last year called Trigger Warning.
Oh no.
Yep.
That title makes me very nervous.
Oh no. She's not done much since.
Oh, here you go, guys. She was in the Netflix film El Camino Christmas with the hilarious Tim Allen.
Okay. Yeah. So Mechanic really was kind of a indication of the path to come, but in the business world, she's killing it.
Fair play to her. I can't fault her that. But that sounds like we've got our briefing on how the Mechanic got resurrected. I should drop the. Sorry. Mechanic got resurrected.
It's impossible. It's very hard to do, right?
It is so hard to do it. But we're here and we want to talk about this film. So let's... oh, whoa. There's a hang glider. Let's all jump on top of it, folks, and talk about it now. I'm sure it could take all of our weight simultaneously for some strange reason. It's a very sturdy hang glider. Brendan, you're back on the show talking about another beloved spy film, of course, and I want to hear from you because you're far more qualified to talk about these things than we are. What did you think of Mechanic Resurrection?
So, like I said earlier, I love, as ridiculous and dumb as they are, I really enjoy the Crank movies. And when this thing started with Jason Statham smashing a table into a lady's face and then just smashing people's faces into tables, and I think the grill thing happens at the beginning too.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, great. I'm on board. I'm ready to see this. If this is the movie from here on out till the end, I'm in. And really, I think the subtitle, I even wrote in my notes, is oh, that's it. Because it kind of gets your hopes up, at least for me. It kind of gets my hopes up at the beginning, and as the movie goes on, it just slowly goes downhill, and just becomes so by the numbers and so rote and so predictable, I guess. I don't know. Now, to be fair, I must have been very confused watching this because I haven't had the context of the original The Mechanic with Jason Statham. So I'm sure I'm missing out on all the nuance.
It's so important. It's so important that you'd seen those films.
Is he the only character that from the original that comes back?
Yeah.
So not even Michelle Yeoh.
No.
Okay, because the way they set up Michelle Yeoh, it's like she was such an important person in his life, and I was like, oh, surely she was in the first one.
Nope.
Well, let's be honest. They also say that Jessica Alba is the love of his life, and that comes out of nowhere. So that they're just doing that in this film.
Yeah. It just, That was the overall experience for me. It was a movie that just kind of was like Sturm and Drag. Like it just kind of glazed over my brain.
It's funny because like I would say the only callbacks to the 2011 movie that, I mean, obviously who he is, his job and that sort of stuff. Yeah, that is set up in the first movie, but you can easily pick that up in this movie as well. And there's an endless array of action movies that are about former hitmen or whatever assassins that are called back after, having retired. Like that's not something you necessarily need a previous movie to explain. I think the only moment, and correct me, Scott, if there's something else that jumps to mind, is like the scene with him with the record player at the start of the movie, which is like kind of his love of vinyl records calls back to the first movie. That's about it, right?
I mean, there's a couple of small things. I mean, you see a clip on her phone of him escaping the gas station as it's exploding, which is from the first film. Jason Statham's amazing ability to high speed, barrel roll out of a scene is legendary. He has, the best forward rolls in town. The other thing is in the background, you see one of the boards that he sets up with like the photos and the diagrams, which is kind of his modus operandi when it comes to putting these schemes together. You just see it in the background. It's almost basically, it's not even lip service, it's screen service, I suppose.
Yeah, I think with like the 2011 movie, it's actually kind of helpful in some ways to have watched the original because the original has much kind of like, it's not a great movie, but it has a lot more complex ideas that are kind of bubbling under the surface that you can, when you watch the remake, you see like what they stripped out, like how much potential there was and some of the interesting relationships that they kind of simplify or reframe for the remake. So in that case, it's actually kind of interesting to compare the two, but I wouldn't say that this movie has any real relationship with the previous movie that you get any benefit from.
You know what's interesting too is that Statham, I'm thinking now of another remake he was in, Italian Job, which is another example of a remake of a better movie that really does strip away a lot of the stuff that kind of sells the original movie, So I mean, I guess he's got some experience in this department. But by the way, thank you for pointing out the little things from the first Statham movie, because now, having known that, I think I should watch it again, because I'll probably, my opinion will probably change quite a bit.
It's like Tenet. Once you see it the first time, you go back and it changes your experience. That's how you're going to feel when you go back to Mechanic Resurrection.
Right. I'll be like, oh, his diagrams. It's all coming together now.
Temporal pins and movements. That's what it's all about. I read on Twitter the other day that someone was earnestly saying you should watch the film backwards and it will make more sense. I was like, are you actually high?
Wait, Mechanic Resurrection?
Yes.
Wait, which movie are you talking?
Tenet, but let's go with Mechanic Resurrection because that's actually way funnier. Wait, what's the plot of that film? Hang on.
That could be our Patreon exclusive. Watching Mechanic Resurrection backwards.
He revives a bunch of people on a boat by taking bullets out of their bodies. And then heals 3 people across the globe.
Yep. Slowly falls out of love with Jessica Alba.
Yeah. And then retires to Sao Paulo or Brazil, I think it was.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That's hey, it's okay.
Earnestly what I thought you were saying at first. It's like, what? That's an insane theory.
The fact that anyone's talking about Mechanic Resurrection on Twitter is more the insane theory, I think, of the two.
Yeah, film Twitter's lighting up about this movie, for sure.
Oh, man. They don't know what's about to hit them.
It was the first major event on Threads. It was a Mechanic Resurrection discussion thread.
So, guys, have you heard about that movie Bottoms is coming out? Yeah, screw that. Let's talk about Mechanic Resurrection.
Watch it backwards.
It'll all make sense. I mean, it makes kind of sense already. No, trust me.
Just gotta do it. Okay, so you liked the start. You weren't on board for the rest of the film. That makes sense. And we'll get into mine in a second. I think I'll go last. But Cam, I'll throw it to you because you've seen it once before.
Yeah.
Has your opinion changed on it since watching it?
I think what I noticed this time was, and I would say my opinion hasn't changed drastically.
Sure.
I still think it's a terrible movie that is pretty watchable. because A, it's short, and B, it has enough like goofy ideas that I kind of perk up for. Like there's an assassination scene with a pool on like a 76 floor building that I'm like, they marketed the hell out of that in their trailers, but I can understand why.
It's in the poster, yeah.
Yeah, like it alternately looks really cool and very fake at the same time, but like it's an idea that's interesting, and the movie has enough of those sprinkled throughout to kind of keep me awake because it's not exciting. It's not a thrilling movie. It's not like a edge of your seat action film like a John Wick film or a Mission Impossible film or anything like that. But it has enough quirky ideas where like, oh, that's kind of fun. Or a slumming actor like Tommy Lee Jones, like I think playing Elton John or something, showing up to like inject the movie with some energy. I'm like, okay, this movie has some really stupid things that kind of are fun for me. But I did notice much more so this time, the energy really does drop off, I think, after that setup. And once you get to the 3 assassinations, the pool one is cool. The one with the warlord, we'll talk about the prison and everything. That one kind of, to me, is kind of a drag to sit through. And then when you get to like the action stuff towards the end, it's very perfunctory. Like there's some fun little action beats, but in terms of like putting together a 25-minute action-driven finale, you kind of are checked out by the time the movie is over.
Yeah, I found myself frequently checking my watch through this. Unfortunately so. And just to talk to your Tommy Lee Jones point about him playing Elton John, I think to me he's just playing the Stranix character from Under Siege. It's Under Siege too, with Tommy Lee Jones.
It is. Yeah, it's not quite as over the top crazy in terms of like the performance as Under Siege, but in terms of like the very garish attire and what seems to be like all Tommy Lee Jones ideas. Yeah.
He was clearly doing 2 days worth of work and having a good time doing it. So I'm all for Tommy Lee Jones looking like he's having fun for once.
I have a question for you, Scott, and Brendan, if you've seen the movie, which movie was Tommy Lee Jones more mentally checked out for? Mechanic Resurrection or Criminal?
You know what's crazy? We talked about Criminal on the podcast, and I can't even place who Tommy Lee Jones plays. Is he the cop? Is he like the main?
He's like the scientist doctor
guy. Honestly, I would say Criminal, just because in this movie, I mean, he's not over the top, but he's got a little spark to him. And my God, that like Beetlejuice colored pajamas and that long flowing robe and that little soul patch and that earring. Oh, like
the glasses.
Yes. I hope that he went to the costume designer and was like, I have some ideas.
I've brought this from home.
I love his look in this movie. Yeah, Criminal, like, I don't remember a thing about his performance. Like, I didn't even remember his character till you told me just now. So I would say Criminal is the phoned in one.
Criminal might have a more checked out Tommy Lee Jones, but what it does have that this film doesn't have is Kevin Costner pretending to be a dog while chained up to the ceiling. I'm just saying.
That's true.
That is a highlight of my life.
Can I tell you the highlight of Criminal for me, and it's almost got nothing to do with the movie? So
sure.
When I worked at the movie theater, that movie came out, and it just kind of came out like no one really knew what it was. They're like, oh, Criminal, sure, whatever. And prominently on the poster is Ryan Reynolds. So I can't tell you the amount of people that went in 15 minutes in, spoiler alert, when Ryan Reynolds is brutally killed and then came out looking for refunds because they thought it was a Ryan Reynolds movie. It was my favorite thing ever. It's like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to watch a Kevin Costner movie, actually. People were not happy with that.
Poor Kevin Costner. Like, you go from being this icon leading like Dances with Wolves, The Untouchables, like the go-to guy for mainstream film for a number of years, to having to have audiences tricked into seeing your movie by thinking it's a Ryan Reynolds film.
Can I just point out a moment of symmetry as well here that's taken place that we haven't been made aware of? Is we're talking about Criminal, but when we appeared on your show, Brendan, we spoke about Replicas. And what do those two films have in common? Some people at home might know it already. It is the actor Alice Eve. And more so than that, in both films, she dies very early on for no reason whatsoever. Thank you, Alice Eve.
Did she die in replicas?
In Replica, she dies in the car accident. She's his wife.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then she's brought back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Remember
yeah.
they make the clones.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm,
Right.
Oh.
yeah. Small connective tissue. But I guess from my point of view, this is like a mechanic film in name only. There is almost no connective tissue. You know, Brendan and I were talking beforehand before we did this episode, and like Brendan, you asked me about like watching the other ones, and I had just watched this, and I was like, I think you're absolutely fine. You don't need to watch the other ones. You don't need to have sort of background revision for this film. It can be just met as a schlocky action film, and that's exactly what it is. It's 90 minutes of Jason Statham just being Bond with no money whatsoever. And
yeah.
I think if you just come into it expecting that, it's actually a pretty good time. I agree with what you both said in terms of you have this great start. Like, it really kickstarts stuff. There's like a gondola chase. Any spy film needs a gondola chase. It's always good to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then he dives onto a hang glider that's flying past and somehow manages to survive. I was like, okay, this film is going nuts from the start. I'm here for it. And then it just dies with him and Jessica Alba on a beach with Michelle Yeoh for some reason. For no reason whatsoever. And I will just put in, Michelle Yeoh is completely wasted in this film. We'll come back to it. What was that casting? But it does, for me, at least, somewhat resurrect when it comes to doing the kills later on. It does get a little bit more energy back because you get some action sequences. But that, like, 30-minute sequence in a 90-minute film of Jason Statham and Jessica Alba, neither are known for their, award-winning acting. Bouncing off of each other and trying to sell the world's most passionate love affair is some of the worst stuff I've sat through. Luckily, you have the assassinations later to get back to, but yes, it takes a lot of the magic away having to sit through those beach scenes.
Can you explain her character to me, Scott?
No. I tried, because I've seen this twice. I watched this twice. I tried to track it in the second one, like her plan. She's hired by the guy to sort of like honey trap, whatever you want to call it, him in.
Yes.
And then they'll get him to do the assassinations.
Yeah, and doesn't she have to... So from what I gather, she's there with a guy and has to pretend that he's beating her. But then he gets like too method and actually starts beating her? Is that what happened?
It's just a prank, bro.
Yeah.
It's just...
Well, it's so like weirdly like just an off the cuff. She's like, oh, he got drunk and went too far. And you're like, what? Like,
you would also think like these are like high level criminals that he wouldn't just be like, oh crap, I got too drunk, guess I better do it for real. Like, that seems like a weird mistake to make. So much so that I'm watching this movie. I don't know if you guys, Scott, you said you hadn't seen this before, right?
No.
Okay.
No, this is new for me.
Did you think at the beginning that she was in on it the whole time? Because I thought it was a ruse. Like, that she said, oh, this guy, he was supposed to pretend to beat me, and you were supposed to come in, and then we're going to fall in love, and they're going to kidnap me and make you do this stuff. I thought she was literally telling him this, but was also going to turn out that she was just working for them.
I think you're giving the film too much credit.
Well,
I think I went into it knowing the first one and the second one, so I was like, I'm not expecting much, but I can see where you're coming from, and you're watching a spy film, so you're expecting a little bit of like double crossing.
Something.
I don't think this film is something, some sort of energy.
Just straightforward.
No, her plan makes no sense.
No, they bend over backwards after that kind of like shady introduction of like, I was hired to basically honeypot you, to like repainting her as this like saintly humanitarian who runs like a shelter for human trafficking victims or survivors and is just trying to protect the shelter. And you're like, wow, they are like really trying. Like, they want us to just like not question this character whatsoever. And it's weird how they like introduce this kind of like level of kind of like real world tragedy to like what this woman's work is. And then you have Jason Statham. We find out he was an orphan who was like sold as a child soldier to like a gangster, and that the villain didn't escape the clutches of this gangster, whereas Jason Statham did. Like, there are real world horrors in this absolutely absurd movie with people diving on top of hang gliders and like blowing people up in jacuzzis.
Yeah, it literally goes from hang glider riding, perhaps, straight to domestic abuse in like a 5-minute span, and that's a whiplash.
It is, yeah.
Well, I suppose we could dwell on some of the things that didn't work, but let's praise the things that did first. Let's talk about likes. Brendan, take us away. Give us something you liked about Mechanical Resurrection.
Well, there are a few. I think there's a couple we covered already, and Cam mentioned too. The opening is great. I think it starts off, like I said, like it's going to be a ridiculous action movie, which it is, but it doesn't really live up to the level, I think, at the beginning. Tommy Lee Jones' character, of course, making the most of like maybe 5 minutes on screen at most. And the pool assassination is admittedly pretty cool. And it does have my favorite shot of the entire movie is after he does it and he's walking back through the window. It's just that background shot of the body just flopping down through the water. You just hear the splat.
Yeah.
But man, anything else positive that really sticks out? Obviously the romance for me really works. You just really feel this chemistry sizzles off the screen. I really can't think of any other big, and maybe when you guys mention it, something else will come to mind, but those are the three like main things, I guess. I like that Michelle Yeoh was there, but not when I found out what she was going to be doing.
I will say this, just to add to the Tommy Lee Jones love from a little bit earlier. I did enjoy that the final shot of the movie is him sitting at a computer, like looking at surveillance video and discovering that the mechanic had escaped again and is like, ha ha ha. And then he has that bizarro line where he goes, bang, you're dead. Cut to black credits.
Which is the line from the last film, but makes no sense in this context.
Didn't it also look like the computer graphics were super outdated? Is it just me, or did it look?
Yeah,
it looked like.
Oh, that's in my dislikes. It's terrible. They've all got that like bloom to it. Everything's like photoshopped in, but badly.
It looked like it reminded me of the Jackal when he's talking to the computer. That great scene.
I was reminded of Swordfish when he's doing the like hacking and you're seeing like geometric shapes like fly around the screen. Like whenever Statham sat down at a computer to like bring up information, I'm like, this doesn't even look like actual websites or programs you'd be running.
No effort.
He's on the dark web, Cam. You don't know what happens there.
Okay.
It's
That's
dark.
Fair. That's fair.
Dark.
It's the dark web. They don't know how to program properly.
No, they're in the dark. Cam, what about you?
Locations.
Sure.
I think that this movie, I actually appreciate.
They weren't there at any point.
Well, there's some second unit. I don't know. Jason Statham did say he was in Thailand shooting for a prolonged period of time.
Oh, they did some beach stuff. I'll give you that. They did some beach stuff.
Yeah. So, like, whenever they would show their locations, I was actually pretty into it because some of them look really beautiful. Like, some of the Thailand footage is fantastic. And some of those aerial views you get of, like, Sydney, Australia, and, you know, some various other locales, like, they look great. And it is a little jarring when you go from looking at some of the really beautiful second unit footage, or in the case of some of the Thailand stuff, you know, the primary unit. But when you cut from that to, like, a green screen shot of an actor, it's a little jarring, but I appreciate any movie that goes somewhere and tries to communicate the beauty of that location. Like, you know, we talked about, I guess we didn't really do it on the show much, but Fast 10, earlier this summer went to a lot of locations, but they all just look like actors in front of a green screen. This movie, I think some of the fakery was actually pretty good, and some of the real world settings, I appreciated spending time in. I can understand when Jason Statham says, you know, go to a couple cool countries and make a fun movie for people. I get it.
Well, it's interesting as well. Yeah, I think we'll probably talk about some spy movie connections in this film at some point. But the stuff I think that's meant to be in the Philippines was shot in Thailand, in Phuket, which is where they shot some of the scenes from Tomorrow Never Dies with Michelle Yeoh.
And also Man with Golden Gun, too.
Yeah, so little Bond connection there, which is nice.
It's very much also the Adam Sandler mentality, where he's like, I think I want to go on vacation here this year. So he just makes a movie about Africa. Why not?
I mean, I would pretty much guarantee that the reason, say, like Michelle Yeoh is in this movie was probably just a vacation. She probably shot for like a week or two, probably a week, and got a free trip to that location.
Yeah, like you hire Michelle Yeoh and you're not anyway. So yeah, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I've got some concerns there. I agree, Cam. I think locations do work when they're there. When they're CG'd in, it looks pretty bad. That does bump me, I have to say. My I have left that we haven't mentioned because Tommy Lee Jones I think is great. I think the opener is great. I think some of the assassinations are great. The action I think is actually pretty well staged and pretty well shot. I don't think I lose like the geography of any of the shooting scenes. It's just a lot of Jason Statham shooting people. But there's like a whole protracted like Home Alone style sequence at the end in the sub pen. That's actually pretty inventive and quite fun to watch. And Jason Statham is pretty good at throwing grenades into small holes, which is fun. And yeah, I just like seeing him shoot the place up. This is that leads me to my big which is, and I said it in my sort of top notes, is this is a Bond film with no budget.
Yeah.
If you want an old school Bond film, no thrills, like with a lot of shooting and not a lot of questions being asked, this is actually not a bad sort of thing to reach for in that sense. It's got a dry period when they're just doing the romance, but after that and before that, it's a lot of fun just watching the action sequences and seeing this sort of insane, almost like Roger Moore era Bond film.
Well, the action in this movie, you would not say it is top tier in any way, shape, or form, but it is technically competent. Like, it is getting across the geography of where they are. You're getting actual action beats, kills that are sometimes fun, sometimes video gamey, but in a, kind of mildly entertaining way. It's not like the kind of the choppy bad stuff you see in like a Taken 3. I was actually pretty satisfied overall with it as kind of a action exploitation film. And there's some CG going on in some of this action, but I found it mostly inoffensive, except when it was like some of the like explosions where you're like, oh, that's from an 8-bit video game.
Oh, there's one explosion that is, I literally think they just used a special effect from like an Asylum movie. Like it was real bad.
Yeah.
Is that the boat by any chance?
The deck of the boat?
Yeah. That's that big one, especially when they cut to the wide shot and you're just like, oh, none of that happened.
Do you know what though? Like that entire boat action scene, it reminded me a lot of GoldenEye 64. Of the level where you're on, I think it's called the frigate level, where you're on the boat and you've got to free the hostages, and you're running around, with often like a silenced gun in that game, and that's what he's doing in this movie. And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of getting that video game energy off of this, and I'm not hating it.
No, I think this is, in terms of a movie that, I think Brendan mentioned The Transporter or something had on at Christmas in the background. This is perfect for that. Like a family, perhaps slightly older family, movie where you're like half talking to each other and half watching the film for the action sequences. It's perfect for that. Like there's some cool moments you'll get a little kick out of seeing.
Yeah. Also, big reveal, guys. I've never played the GoldenEye video game.
Whoa.
Well, thanks for joining us this week, Brendan. That about wraps us up with this episode.
Bye.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay. It's not a prerequisite to be on the show, but it is appreciated if you do.
It's a first-person shooter thing for me. I always find those so difficult to. I get almost like seasick playing them.
Right.
Which certainly wouldn't help on the frigate level.
No, that would be doubly bad. Yeah.
Double O bad.
Were they ever on a boat in this movie?
Yeah, they were on a physical boat. For sure.
Were they?
Yeah. They had a boat because you wouldn't build such practical sets in that way. You'd use a boat.
I wasn't sure. Like,
I mean, they're probably just like green screen in the background, but I think they were on some kind of boat.
They're probably just on like a still water somewhere.
You think they were on water? Maybe it was a boat on like in a soundstage.
Isn't it easier for it to be on water? I always thought that'd been cheaper than it to be driven into a soundstage.
They did like a Fitzcarraldo and carried it like to the soundstage from the water.
I think they just borrowed Jim Cameron's tank that he used for Titanic, and they just shot it on there.
Mm-hmm. And then he went straight to do the Meg afterwards.
Yeah, probably didn't even leave. He was like, everyone was packing up, and Jason Statham was like, "I'm just gonna stick around, wait for the Meg people to come in.
I've got my Speedo already. Like I'm good to go." Yeah.
Oh, my character's different. Hold on, I got to slightly change my scowl. There we go.
I need to grunt differently.
Yeah. What's my motivation for my grunting in this movie?
My intonation of grunting has changed.
That's a good tagline.
My intonation of grunting has changed. Title of my memoir.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Attention, SpyHards, diehards. Independent podcasting, much like the spy game, requires considerable resources, whether it's research, equipment, hosting, or of course constructing a hidden moon base. We're putting out the call for your support.
That's right, the SpyHards Patreon is the home to our ever-growing lineup of Agents in the Field episodes where we decode non-spy films from your favorite spy actors, and The Debrief, where we activate our billion-dollar brains and predict how the spy movie news of today will shape tomorrow.
Cam, what have we got in our crosshairs this month?
The Equalizer 3 is in theaters now, so it seems like a good time to celebrate with some Denzel Washington. We are going to look at the 2010 Tony Scott thriller, Unstoppable, starring Denzel and Chris Pine. Choo choo.
So accept your mission and hop in the Hellmobile today at patreon.com/spyhards. But before Spectre agents intercept this broadcast, let's get back to the Spy Jinx. We've praised the film enough, clearly. We have some issues. We have some dirty laundry. We need to air it. Brendan, it sounds like you might have a couple of things to say when it comes to dislikes. I'll throw it back to you, sir.
Yeah, I don't want to step on your. I know you got a big one you want to talk about. And I don't want to step on that one. But for me, it's like, okay. For the longest while, it took me a while to realize that the movie was rated R, and like I didn't feel like it really felt like that very much. And I'm like, if you're for a while anyway, until I started hearing them throw around the F-bomb, and I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
But if you're gonna make like you said, a Bond movie with a lower budget, but just like fights, kills, bullets, everything, and you're gonna go for the R rating, I'm sorry, if your movie's not that good, at least make it gory or bloody or something. Like, give me something. Like when that guy goes splat on the pavement, show it. Come on, just give me a shot of it. Like, I feel like there's so many, just like, it feels like I'm watching like a PG-13 spy movie, which is fine. I don't have anything against those movies at all. But like, if you have a movie this dumb, I need something. And I feel like when it started with all that, like the table bashing and the guy's face on the grill, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this. It's actually gonna go for it. And it just felt like people getting shot, bloodless deaths, whatever. Like, it's like when I watch like a bad horror movie, it's the same thing there. Like, if I'm gonna watch a bad horror movie, at least make people die in cool ways. Like, you know, something to enjoy. That was actually my biggest thing, is that I wanted it to be just like, I don't know, more violent, more grosser. More grosser? Is that a thing?
It is now.
I just started it. I mean, obviously, the romance, I think we'll all talk about that, is just the movie just stops dead like a cold fish for 25 minutes. Is it really 25 minutes of the movie?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, and like, you have that hilarious sex scene in the first state of the movie.
The one scored to doing it, famously.
Yeah. And then you get like this romantic sex scene in this movie, and I was like, this is just eye-rolling stuff. And the entire relationship is so absurd. And it's like, we just like, in terms of the movie timeline, it's like a couple hours before they are having their like romantic falling in love stuff, she was like, they thought, an abused person on a boat that they were having to rescue. And then like maybe 4 hours later, 5 hours, Michelle Yeoh is trying to play matchmaker between the two of them at a wedding and tying them together, and they're like staring dreamily into each other's eyes. I'm like, oh my God, like, this is, James Bond movies, they do the same thing where they meet and it's like they instantly are giving each other the eyes. But like, this movie tries to be very sincere about it, and it does not work for a single second.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a Bond movie, that I feel like it's like, there's like a sexual charge to it. It's not so much like, because this movie is like, no, they're going to be in a relationship. Like, they're going to possibly have kids together. They're going to get married. I feel like also the sex scene, like you said, very unremarkable. It seemed to have been a scene with two actors who didn't want to be in the room with each other. And they also, I don't know. For me, okay, I think they could have easily fixed this though. I think if like she tells him, okay, they expect, I'm going to seduce you, we're going to fall in love, and then they're going to kidnap me and get you to do basically what they want you to do. He could have said, all right, let's pretend. And then it had it go that way, like not
Sure.
have it like go, where they actually fall in love in the span of 4 hours. Like have them, you could hint it a little bit, like, oh, maybe there's something there, but you don't have to go full tilt with it. And then later in the movie, as the movie's going on, maybe as they have random conversations over the phone or whatever, maybe that's when he starts to realize slowly, or maybe he doesn't ever. Maybe he just wants to bang her, and then they bang at the end, and the credits roll. Who knows?
I mean, when you cut at the end of the movie to Cambodia, where she's working at that shelter, and Jason Statham just silently is standing there staring at her, I'm like, they want us to feel something, and I feel nothing whatsoever.
They also want you to be shocked that he's still alive, which I was like, all right, where's the part where he comes back? Come on.
I was reading online someone's review because they had an idea of how this film would be better, and that would be that Michelle Yeoh's character is the one who is captured, and it's Jason Statham has to take Jessica Alba with him to do these missions. So then they get to build the relationship throughout the film, and then you get sort of the romantic payoff at the end as a way you sort of earn it that way.
Sure.
Okay.
And I think that would have been a better use of everyone, really.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see Jessica Alba go undercover in the prison with a tattoo on her face too.
Posing as a sexual predator? That was odd. Yeah.
Oh, that dice tattoo. Oh, yeah. Those are my most negative things. I've got another one, but I'll leave it to you.
Well, I think we've set it up then. I need to talk about Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
I said it at the top. You don't hire one of the best sort of martial art film stars. Now, that's not all she's here for. Of course, she's done plenty of sort of straight acting work as well. She's been fantastic in that, and now she is an Oscar-winning actor finally. But this was not the height of her career around this time. She wasn't doing. I was looking on her IMDb. She wasn't doing a whole bunch of good work, and she spoke about this leading up to the, where she was nominated for the Oscar, about how Hollywood wasn't really giving her parts. This is, I think, probably the film she points to when she goes, yeah, this is a rough time. It was Mechanic Resurrection. Thank you for that. You get her in a film, and she's got the pedigree, and she doesn't throw one single punch.
I know.
What is this? Why? Unless like she lives on that sort of general vicinity of the island they shot that on, and she's like, oh yeah, I guess I could come down to set for a couple of days. Then maybe I get it. But they have a whole like team of people infiltrating the island, fighting Jason Statham. They couldn't have her come out and like throw a few punches, then get hit or something like that. Like, just give us some bit of Michelle Yeoh kicking some butt, because none of the women really get any time in this film. Even the female at the start who gets like a table thrown in her face.
Yeah.
Every woman in this film gets completely steamrolled, or is just a sort of side character that will just take attention away for 5 minutes. And that's a real shame when you have someone like Michelle Yeoh in your film.
Well, and I mean, kind of related, but like the filmmakers were patting themselves on the back for like giving Jessica Alba action moments after she'd been captured, where she like, kicks people in the nuts and whatever else. But I'm like, I don't know. She's still basically just a damsel in distress in this movie. Like, don't give yourself any points for writing that character that way. And yeah, Michelle Yeoh, it's inexplicable. I think it's just entirely like she was not being valued for what she brought to films at this point in time. We are, I guess, 1 year away from Star Trek Discovery, which was a bit of a boost for her. And then Crazy Rich Asians, I think maybe a year and a half, 2 years after that show started. So it's like the Michelle Yeoh renaissance is about a year away from starting. And this is just kind of that. I mean, look, Michael Caine is a beloved actor nowadays. This is kind of her bullet to Beijing moment.
Her Jaws 4.
Yeah.
Do you guys think? You know what this actually? Two things. I thought number one, they were actually going to just kill her at the beginning and cause Statham to want revenge even more. And number two, This reminded me so much, and it's a movie you guys covered, but it reminded me so much the casting, the whole casting idea of like in the Avengers when they cast Eddie Izzard as a character who doesn't talk.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Why do you do that?
I have no idea.
Yeah, that is a weird choice. Someone who's a comedian and is genuinely funny and nothing.
It's like this. Someone who is an incredible martial artist as well as an actor, and you have them not throwing a punch, like you said. It's mind-boggling.
My guess is, now that I think about this, the mechanic movies do very well internationally. And my guess is they had a small role in this screenplay. They could meet Michelle Yeoh's quote to get her to show up for like a few days.
Mhm.
And they did that because they knew that they could slap her name on that poster and market it in China and other countries where she's really appreciated.
You know what? That makes a lot of sense, actually.
It's a cynical answer, but it's probably correct.
Yeah.
Well, Cam, I'll throw it to you. I had my big speech. What was something you didn't like?
The villains in this movie suck. And if you're going to make an action movie, give me a memorable villain. I mean, Ben Foster is like kind of the villain of the previous movie, sort of.
Sure.
At least he's memorable. This movie, you have this actor, Sam Hazeldine, playing Crane. And Crane is this character who, like Jason Statham, was a child soldier orphan. And he didn't escape. This guy is perhaps the most generic villain, among the most generic villains we've ever tackled on SpyHards podcast, where I'm like, when I sat down to watch this movie, my memory was that Tommy Lee Jones was the villain. And then it was like, oh, who is this guy again? And you sit through the whole thing, and he's so boring. He has a henchman who's also incredibly boring, who, there's like a setup for the henchman's death where you're like, is he dead? He was like diving away from a grenade, and then we just never see him again, so I guess he's gone. It's really sad when the most memorable kind of like standout villain, I actually thought the woman at the start who gets the table to the face was actually pretty memorable. But when Jason Statham goes to the prison, there's the warlord. Warlord himself, he's fine. But there's the guy that's going to assassinate the warlord who has like a fake arm, and he pulls off the hand and has a knife underneath, like built into the arm. And I'm like, that's pretty cool and memorable. That character should have been a henchman in this movie.
Yeah, well, and like Tommy Lee Jones too, like you said, he should have been the villain. That look, that personality, like how much would he have elevated this with? Because he would have hammed it up if he needed to, and he would have been in way more of the movie. It just would have been, yeah. That guy was. You're right. That guy that they had was like, I don't even remember one thing about him, just that he existed.
And his death scene was so lame.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
If you're going to build up for like 90 minutes that Jason Statham has done these like pretty impressive, cool kills through the movie. There's a number of them that are pretty memorable. And then it's like a guy chained up in chains and a bomb going off. I'm like, whatever.
I wrote down in my notes that he is a wet flannel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that about sums it up. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen this actor in anything, or perhaps I've seen him in dozens of things, and he is just such a vapor that I forget about him the moment the movie's over.
Yeah. His face didn't look familiar whatsoever.
No.
Can I ask you guys a question? Since you've seen the first one, has Statham's character always been MacGyver?
Yes, that is an element to the character, that he plots out his assassinations so that they will not be recognized as assassinations. So he has like this understanding of chemistry and tactics where he will break it down and come up with these very convoluted ways of someone dying where he can walk away completely invisible. So that is carried over from the previous movies. I mean, this movie gets so outlandish that I was just trying to picture Charles Bronson in the same scenario. And I don't think that would work, but yeah, that is a thing.
I want to see Charles Bronson like frantically rubbing himself down with shark repellent.
Okay, can I just throw this one out as a bonus dislike? You have characters smothering themselves in shark repellent. There is not a single goddamn shark in this movie. Like, that's
There is
insane.
a fin in the background. You can see a shark. There is a fin.
Whatever.
Okay.
Whatever. I mean, if you're going to, like, keep bringing up the prospect that there are sharks out there and characters need to wear shark repellent, there better be a shark in the movie. And I found an interview with the director, one of the ones I read, where they talked about the most difficult action scene, and he talked about the boat. And he said, we had actors falling off the boat into the water, and it was shark-infested water. And I'm like, boy, is that invisible on screen. You better do something with a shark, damn it.
Maybe that's probably why he wanted to do the Meg after this. He was like, I want all shark.
Yeah, he over-delivered.
Mm.
But okay, so the reason I asked about the MacGyver stuff too, it's like, is his nickname supposed to be the mechanic?
No, it's like a job. Like, people will also like call it cleaners in films, or they paint houses. That's just this universe's name for hired assassin.
Okay, because I thought maybe that's why he was called a mechanic, is because he was like putting these little like kill plans together.
It's kind of that, but it just means hired assassin. But this film seems to have lost because one of the functions of being a mechanic is to do it covertly, for it to seem like an accident. There is nothing covert about any of his skills. The first guy, I mean, obviously it can't be blamed on him. He's managed to do it. So it's not like there's no eyes on him, but they don't look like accidents.
No,
I don't think any of them do.
The Warlord one is just kind of confusing. Because
Well, he would be clearly strangled to death in the post-mortem.
Yes, thank you. I wrote that down too, because he strangles him enough to knock him out, and then puts like drugs down his throat or something to make it look like he OD'd. But yeah, I wrote down that too. It's like, wouldn't they see the marks around his neck though?
Mm-hmm.
And also the escape was really over the top, where he's like blowing a hole in the side of the prison with like C4 and diving off and doing a swan dive. Like, they're gonna remember who that was.
Great form, though, guys. Great form.
I mean, it's a callback that Brendan won't get, and I apologize for that, but it was nice to see another prison escape after the Macintosh Man. And of the two, I think I prefer this one.
Oh, okay, that's fair. And I think, didn't Jason Statham do like a swan dive at the start of the first Mechanic?
He does quite a few dives. Wasn't he like a professional diver when he was in the Commonwealth Games? Yeah.
I think genuinely he actually was like a dive, and isn't like and this his character that he plays is like an expert at everything.
Yeah,
like
he's James Bond.
Diving, fighting, like bombs. Yeah,
and madly falling in love with Jessica Alba. Apparently, he's very good at that too.
Yeah, very difficult to do.
Well,
very difficult to do.
That's true. She's got all that. What's the name of that company? Cam? Is she now rich for?
Honest Corporation.
Oh, she's getting all that honest dollar.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to the knock list, we're just going to throw out to any final notes, any final questions, any final remarks that we have. I'll start us off. There's 3 kills in this film. The last one's a bit of a switcheroo, but it still happens. What's the best of the 3 assassinations? What's your favorite of the bunch?
Oh, that's easy. I think I already said.
I'd say the pool.
Yeah, the pool. Not even close.
Yeah, the pool stands out.
Yeah. The guy in the boat, I suppose, getting blown to smithereens is cool. I was hoping something cooler would happen with like the anchor that he's wrapped around, but it's not really used.
Why did he let Tommy Lee Jones live?
Well, okay, they established it like Tommy Lee Jones is apparently a moral arms dealer.
Right, that was weird. I kind of saw it as like, oh, the movie's like, oh wait, this is the one actor everyone recognizes. Let's spare him.
Yeah,
I don't think I can argue with either. I think it's a swimming pool. Brendan, any sort of final notes or questions?
There's one moment that I just want to mention real quick that I thought was kind of borderline uncomfortable. When Jessica Alba arrives on the island and she goes up to see Michelle Yeoh for the first time, and Michelle Yeoh is saying like, oh hey, how can I help you? And she's like, oh good, you speak English. I thought that was a bit weird.
I didn't catch that.
It does happen. There's actually a moment that adds to that sort of ick factor. I think when Michelle Yeoh is treating her wounds from her abuse, and she starts talking about like her father's mysticism and the magic potions that she would put on him, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Oh, and they said that Arthur Bishop, Statham's character, trained with her father.
Yeah, it's like, oh god. Right. Please don't bring this back if they ever do a third one.
I think the other thing I wanted to mention, besides the great explosion at the end and the very weird Tommy Lee Jones ending, is there's a moment, it's the laziest part of the entire movie to me. It's like they clearly ADR'd the line in because they didn't think people would understand what's going on. But after Statham's killed, I think the second person, a very like mumbly line 80 yard in where he's like, "Oh, he's using me to take out his competition." Like it's just in the background of the scene, and I was like, "Yeah, like we got it." I think that's also like indicative of the whole movie, like as a general thing, like just over explaining and like dumbing it down as much as possible. But that stuck out to me.
It's like it's very hard to explain why Tommy Lee Jones is like a hero in this movie. Like they throw out this bizarre line about being a moral arms dealer, and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand what this means. Like it's just tossed off in like 2 lines of dialogue.
He says they've called me a fascist, a racist, and a communist, and he's like, well, I'm not a communist, so he's either a fascist or a racist, like,
or both,
or both.
and he also has like nuclear submarines that are armed, by the way, that he has access to. This isn't the guy you want to keep around.
No.
Do you think it was a setup for Mechanic 3?
Mechanic re-resurrection?
No, I've got it. It's 3-canic.
Right.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
Would it have a 3 in the title?
Absolutely.
A number 3?
The E in
Perfect.
mechanic is a 3.
Oh, well, that's it. That's all you need.
Yeah.
It's like Megan.
Yeah, or Taken, or Tac 3-in.
Yeah.
3. I love just like reading them as you would actually read them, like Methrinkinic.
Yeah, sure. It is only. That actually did lead me to my other question. Is I know obviously we haven't had one yet, and it's been over 6 years since the last one came out. Are we ever going to see another mechanic with Statham in it?
No,
I'm going to say no.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think we do get another Mechanic remake, though, maybe one day.
Like a direct-to-streaming movie or something like that. That's a bit more of a gritty thriller. Maybe if they use the original plot where it's about 2, homosexual assassins.
Yeah.
I think that would be actually a really fascinating character study if they did it right.
Wait, the original plot has what, sorry?
So the original premise of the original script was it's basically 2 assassins. One is teaching a younger one, but there's a sort of homoeroticism between the 2 of them. They are lovers, but they the younger one ends up being tasked with killing the older one, the Arthur Bishop of it all. And it's about like them dealing with their love of each other, but also the mission they have to deal with and coming to terms with that. I think it's quite interesting. But because it was the 70s, they couldn't shoot that.
They didn't actually. Okay.
No, they rewrote it to erase that element.
Oh.
But like, if you watch the movie, you can see that gurgling just underneath the surface of the movie.
Because I'm also like, when you said that, I was like, was Charles Bronson all right with that?
Well, exactly. Yeah, I don't think Charles Bronson would have signed on in those days.
Or Jan Michael Vincent either, to
Yeah.
be fair. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like a real Spartacus thing, right? With I think like what Kirk Douglas not realizing the subtext, and if he
Yes.
had, Kubrick would have probably had to shut down the movie.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Cam, any sort of final notes from you?
Well, this is a spy movie podcast, and this movie pays homage or rips off a lot of moments from spy movies.
Mm-hmm.
You have in the scene with the pool, it's very at points Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol with the Burj Khalifa climb.
Yeah.
Only like it's a lot of close-ups, so it doesn't
Yeah.
actually look like he's on the building, but it has a very similar setup, and the way it's just shot reminded me a lot of that moment. Also, this has Jason Statham walking out of the water a la Daniel Craig in Casino Royale. That really jumped out at me.
I bet it
Because,
did.
like, that was a big deal. That would have been, I guess, is that the way they celebrated the 10th anniversary of Casino Royale, was to have Jason Statham evoke Daniel Craig in Mechanic Resurrection?
Wait, what jumped out at you?
I don't know, Scott.
No comment.
Not sharks, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, that is for sure. And I mentioned one earlier, but you get a Jason Statham fighting on top of a gondola. That's very Moonraker.
Yep. And you also get some Jason Statham like swimming away into the darkness, which is very Jason Bourne.
It's a Bond on a budget.
Not spy related, but there's like this bizarre scene of just Jessica Alba swimming underwater in a blue bikini for a prolonged period.
What was that? What was that?
That to me felt like a cut scene from the movie Into the Blue that she did, where like that whole movie was sold as like Jessica Alba in a blue bikini swimming underwater.
I mean, I when that happened, I was just like, they just barely didn't meet their quota for Jessica Alba in a bikini in shots, and the studio was like, we need 7 more seconds of it, and that's what they got.
Yeah. Like the moment where like Jason Statham's watching her walk into the water, and then she does like the dive, and the camera is very clearly trained on one part of her body as she's doing the dive. You're like, okay, I get it.
It's pretty blatant.
It is.
Well, I think it's time we took a seat in the Semtex chair and talk about the knock list. All right. Brendan, you're up first. The first vote goes to you, of course. Yes or no, is Mechanic Resurrection making the knock list, the list of the need to see spy films of all time?
This is a very difficult decision to make.
I don't envy the pressure. I don't envy the pressure.
A lot of responsibility.
Reams of just notebooks filled with pros and cons on this one.
I can see the sweat dripping off of your head.
Well, you probably can because it's very, very hot. No, absolutely not. It doesn't go on the knock list. No, must see spy movie. No, if you want to see this, you can probably just watch the first one, and I'm sure that one didn't go on the knock list either. And it's a bunch of nothing. If you want to watch a really good Jason Statham movie, watch one of the early Guy Ritchie movies or something.
I have a question for you, Brendan.
Yeah.
Which is better, this movie or Jackal?
Oh.
I think. Oh man, I think I enjoyed Jackal more just because it was more funny, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were more parts that were like, this is ridiculous. Like, you know, Bruce Willis talking to his computer and Richard Gere's accent and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's all coming back to me now.
Yeah, I think on that level, I probably enjoyed watching the Jackal more. But this is obviously, I think, a more competently made movie. So on a technical level, I guess this is better. But what would I watch again? Probably the Jackal.
Okay, that's good to know. I want to have that answer out there because I think a lot of people have been debating this for, a long time now, since 2016.
Yep. It's a long debate. Again, like you said, film Twitter just eating this one up.
Yeah.
Mechanic Resurrection backwards, and what was better, this or Jackal?
I'm glad we put it to bed. I'm glad. Well, that's one no. Cam, the question goes to you.
The answer is a big no for me. This is in no way like a disavowed movie. This is just like trash can action that if you watch it maybe at 11 o'clock on like Friday night when you're really, really bored, you might be like, yeah, that was kind of fun to sit through. But beyond that, I have nothing to say really to recommend it. And I'm still annoyed at the lack of sharks.
You clearly are. Okay. 2 no's. As such, my vote doesn't count for anything. I kind of gave it away at the start. In fact, I did give it away at the start. It's a no. A no way. There is no resurrecting this film. It is dead on arrival, unfortunately. But there is still some fun to be had with it. And I think in terms of a 90-minute action film, I think 60 minutes of it, maybe 50 minutes of it are pretty good. And yeah, as Cam said, 11 p.m. on a Friday, you've had a few brewskis and you're feeling a bit of a buzz. You wipe on your shark repellent and stick on Mechanic Resurrection, you might have a nice time.
Scott, what would you rather watch if you were like super bored and these are your only 2 options?
Is it Jackal or Mechanic Resurrection?
No. We've settled that one.
Don't take my answer.
2011 Mechanic or Mechanic Resurrection?
Mechanic Resurrection.
I'm kind of in the same boat. Yeah.
I'd rather the sort of like fun nothing burger of a film that's just like, oh, interesting. Oh, that's funny. Oh, he's diving onto a hang glider. Instead of Jason Statham trying to do a gritty hitman thriller.
Like a bad, gritty movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys about that too, actually. So you think the sequel's more fun to watch than the original one?
I think the original, not the Charles Bronson, the Jason Statham original is a better film.
Yeah.
Okay. But what would I rather watch? I'd rather watch the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also shorter.
That's true. The 2011 one is just a entirely disposable, gritty kind of action drama.
Yeah.
That's not particularly interesting. Versus this movie, which is probably worse in some ways, but is so bizarre at points that at least it rises above that kind of tedium of the 2011 movie.
Now, may I ask you guys a question that is just solely for my own entertainment?
Go ahead.
Would you rather watch this again or Replicas?
Oh, tying it all together.
I would choose Mechanic Resurrection.
I would choose Mechanic Resurrection.
It's a fair, honest answer.
But if it was hanging out with you and talking about Replicas or watching Mechanic Resurrection, now that's a different story. Because it's still Mechanic Resurrection, sorry.
Oh, snap.
But that does sort of, tie us up beautifully. It's 3 no's. As such, Mechanic Resurrection is not making the knock list. The dossier on the film is complete and filed as classified. That wraps us up for the Mechanic trilogy. Will we get a 4th film? Maybe one day down the road. But that's our time done with Arthur Bishop. But over to you, Brendan. I mentioned your show off top of our show. What were they thinking? And I recommend everyone goes and checks that out. We'll have links in the show notes below as well. But what have you got coming up on the show?
Well, either on now or coming up very soon. I'm very excited because we'll be talking about one of the sexiest movies of all time. It would be a 90s gem, Exit to Eden, starring the very sexy Dan Aykroyd and Rosie O'Donnell.
Mm-hmm.
I have no knowledge of this film, and it sounds like that's a good thing.
It prominently features Dan Aykroyd and Rosie O'Donnell as the stars on the poster, but they're really not. It's these 2 other actors that their names escape me right now, so that's how big names they are. And
I can actually say it was Paul Mercurio and Dana Delaney.
There you go.
You're welcome.
It takes place at like a BDSM like summer camp essentially, and it's not sexy. That's the twist. It's not. It's really it's a really bad movie. But you can hear us talk all about it coming up soon.
Nice. And that was actually the male lead of Strictly Ballroom. That was like his follow-up.
To Exit to Eden.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, folks. You should go and check that episode out. We will have links in the show notes below. And Brendan, where can people find you online?
We are on Facebook. You can just search for us. We're on Twitter and Instagram at WWTT Podcast. We are on the Age of Radio website, ageofradio.org, if you want to find us there. And just a quick plug as well, I also have another podcast called For Screen and Country. We were talking actually about the top 100 British movies of all time, according to the BFI, for the longest time. Mm-hmm. But we moved on, and we're currently a war movie podcast. So we're talking about another list over on Paste Magazine, the 100 greatest war movies of all time. And because we don't like staying on task, there'll be lots of side hustles and such as well. And you can find that one at FSAC Pod on Twitter. And we're on Facebook and also on Age of Radio. And you can find both podcasts on, any podcast app. Just search for us.
We'll have links in the show notes below. Have you tackled Where Eagles Dare yet on the show?
No, but that is on the agenda. That is coming up at some point. Is it bad?
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Give us a call.
Okay. Oh, you guys want to talk about it again?
Oh, we love that film.
Yeah.
Okay.
With a passion.
Doesn't Michael Caine play a Nazi?
No, that's The Eagle Has Landed. That's a close one. This is Clint Eastwood and Richard Burton.
Oh, sorry. Which one were you saying again?
Where Eagles Dare.
Oh, yes. No, that is actually on the list, I believe.
Yeah, it should be.
I think. The Eagle Has Landed is one that we're also doing, though.
We've done both, and they're both interesting films.
Okay.
Yeah. But definitely worth checking out. But there you go, folks. All the information in the show notes below. Brendan, again, I want to thank you for joining us for the second time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It was a blast.
Well, Cam, over to you. What have we got coming up next week?
Scott, I'm going to be on vacation in Europe, and so our programming is going to change up a little bit for the month of September. We are actually going to give listeners a preview of an episode of Agents in the Field. These are typically behind the paywall on our Patreon, but next week, you are going to be treated to our review of 1963's The Pink Panther, starring Peter Sellers and David Niven. And I know that people really dug our coverage on the main feed of The Pink Panther Strikes Again, and I think you'll enjoy this coverage as well.
Yeah, I'd actually never watched the film until the point when we recorded this episode. So it's actually a revelation for me going back and seeing the origins of the Peter Sellers Inspector Clouseau character, because he wasn't the main character of the series. It was more David Niven was the guy they sort of pitched for it. It's an interesting film and a hilarious film as well if you've never checked it out. So strap yourself in, folks. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to join us next week as we take a look at the Pink Panther. And if you like what you heard on this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. And don't forget to follow us discreetly, as always, on social media at SpyHards. That's SpyHards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But until next time, listeners, Brendan, Cam, and I are all off to go and watch Mechanical Resurrection in reverse.